Hi everyone, lcjensen here. Tonight we are going to make some chicken parmesan with some noodles and some quick focaccia bread that I have proofing in the oven. So let's start by getting our chicken ready for frying up for our chicken parmesan. We're going to get our seasoned things. We're going to cut them in half, our fillets. But before I cut them and get them all dirty, I'm going to make our seasoned flour real quick. Move some of this out of the way. We're going to make our Italian seasoned dredge for our chicken parm. So I'm going to start with about 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And then we are going to put in about a tablespoon of onion powder. It's going to give it a nice little savory bit to it. About a tablespoon of oregano, dried oregano. Pinch more. And about a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. You want lots of spices in there because that's what's going to really flavor it up. And then about a tablespoon of garlic salt. And then I'm going to grab a fork and we're going to do a quick stir on this. Kind of mix those herbs around. And then I'm also going to prep up our eggs that we'll be doing our egg wash in. And then what we'll do is we're going to dredge our chicken cutlets in our seasoned flour. Then we'll do them in the egg wash. And then I'm going to add some breadcrumbs to our seasoned flour mix towards it to give it a nice little crust on our chicken parm. Okay, make sure you want to get all of those seasonings mixed around so you don't have any hidden pockets. They like to kind of stick in the corner of your bowls. Okay, got that. And then let's get our eggs cracked up. I'm going to use 4 eggs. So it's about 1 egg per chicken cutlet, but we are going to be cutting each chicken cutlet in half. So we'll have 8 kind of fillets when we're done with everything. And here we go. I'm going to poke each yolk, and then we're going to give a quick little whip up. So you want to have a nice like beaten egg in there. You want to make sure that yolk is all mixed into that egg white. Otherwise, it will kind of be a long, like slimy egg white, and that won't be good for coating our chicken. So we'll give it a quick whip. There we go. There we go. And perfect. So now I'm going to go through, let me get my breadcrumbs ready before we get our chicken all cut into. Okay. I'm going to cut each chicken fillet in half, kind of butterflying it, but we're going to go all the way through. That way they'll fry up nicely. They won't be super thick. And that when they're thick like that, then it's much harder to cook all the way through. And then you're more likely to burn your breading. So I always cut my fillets in half because they are just so thick. There we go. And right through it. Now, at the store, you can always buy chicken breast tenderloins, which have already kind of been filleted through into thinner cuts. You could always do that if you're not comfortable kind of cutting through your fillet. There we go. Okay. And now what I'm going to go through, I'm going to dredge each of these in our seasoned flour. And we used a bunch of Italian spices for this because it is a kind of an Italian dish. There we go. And this dredging part is really important for getting the next layer, the nice crust layer of it, to stick. If you don't dredge it, then when you dip your chicken breast into the egg wash, it just slides right off your chicken breast. And then your breading won't stick on as well. So this is important for getting that nice, good, crispy crust on our chicken parm. And I'm going to be pan frying these, but you could always put them in the oven and bake them up instead of frying if you wanted to. Here we go. One last one. Okay. I'll take my clean hand here. We're going to add in our breadcrumbs. These are seasoned breadcrumbs. They have Parmesan cheese in them. And then we're going to add some panko because I just had a little bit of panko left. And again, these are like a seasoned one, which both have either Parmesan or Region cheese in it.
You have a question? How many are you cooking for tonight?
We are cooking for 9 tonight. So that is our base for cooking every night. Our little ones will share one of the bigger fillets, kind of cut that in half. You know, they're not very big, so they don't eat a lot. Here we go. But we don't often have that many leftovers. Okay, now here we go. But we don't often have that many leftovers. Okay, now what we're gonna go is into the egg wash. We're gonna kind of flip it both sides and then into our breadcrumb. And I like to kind of put it all on top and then give it a good push down. It helps kind of secure it. Here we go. And then I always like to just do this with one hand. Keep your other hand clean. That way, if an emergency arises, turning on the sink for after this. But there's really just no good way to bread it without getting your hands dirty. Turning on the sink for after this. But there's really just no good way to bread it without getting your hands dirty. This chicken tonight, we did a Italian seasoning. So we have Italian seasoning and oregano because we really want it to pair well with our marinara sauce. And then we're going to do kind of like a garlic bread focaccia, kind of a quick focaccia. So it's just a yeast one versus my sourdough focaccia I make a lot of times. But it was kind of a rush to get dinner together after soccer. Always busy nights. I'm actually kind of looking forward to the summer and having just a little less sports. Will be nice. Just a nice little break. I feel like the summer and winter break like area from like December to like end of January, February is always like a nice lull in our schedule, which is always a much needed break for me. Here we go. And go on to the next one. And today, while I was at my daughter's soccer practice, I was working on our camping trip plan. Every year we take a really big, long camping trip. And this year we're going to do the Indiana Dunes, and then we're going to go to this like Ottawa National Forest, and then Voyageurs National Park. And so I'm like picking out camping sites because we do it like old school camping, you know, like with the tent and everything. And I'm like, got my first 2 places, and now I'm trying to find like good camping grounds for Voyageurs National Park. And I looked in, I was like, oh, maybe we'll camp in the park. And everything was either boat or hike to. And I was like, I don't think we can, with an 18-month-old and a soon to be 4-year-old. Teddy will be 4 in 2 days. I was like, I don't know how far they'll be able to carry their camping gear. Okay, and I think we've got one more in here. This one, oh, I got it all breaded up. So I think I got them all breaded and there as usual. So we're going to take our mess. I'm going to bring it to the sink. And then I'm going to give my hands a good scrub. Get all of this kind of paste off. And then we'll be ready to start our focaccia and heating up our oil. Here we go. Nice, clean hands. That's always, I said, breading makes your hands dirty, but it's so delicious. Okay. Oil. We're going to get our oil starting to heat up for our for frying it up. You don't need to have your chicken completely submerged in it, but I do like it to have a nice little layer on the bottom because we do flip them over both sides. So we've got our oil starting to heat up here. We've got a bit of a boil on our water, so I'm going to throw in our rigatoni for our pasta tonight. Go. And I get a good stir. I always like to stir it once we go in so that the noodles don't stick to the bottom of the pan. If you don't stir it right away, that starch can have it stick. Okay. Now let me pull out my focaccia that we had doing. This is a quick one, so we had it kind of come together in the last hour.
You have a question. What are you drinking that's pink?
Oh, yes. This is the dragon fruit, mango dragon fruit, or as we call it in our house, the Durango. It's just a refresher with water, not lemonade. Lemonade's too tart, but I love it. It's the dragon fruit. I know. I need a little pick-me-up, and my daughter begged me to go there after soccer, and I was like, okay, we can get it because I secretly wanted it too. Okay, let's go there after soccer, and I was like, okay, we can get it because I secretly wanted it too. Okay, let's do our crazy little bloop, 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 bloop. So we're going to drizzle it with some oil. Let me grab my spices real quick since everything's over here. We'll bring it all the way over here. So with focaccia, it has a nice oil crust on it. So I'm going to drizzle about a tablespoon over. I already have some oil in our things. We're going to kind of give it a spread over. And this is the fun part with focaccia is you're going to do the little bubbles. You're going to make these kind of little oil pits. It's going to give you that nice little crusty edge on it. There we go. So you dimple it up. Give my hands a quick little rinse now that they're oily. So you got our dimples in the focaccia. That's going to give you those nice ridges. Then we're going to give a little shake over of garlic salt since we kind of are doing a garlic bread type focaccia. So a little sprinkle over the top. And then we're going to use a little bit of Italian seasoning. Just a sprinkle over the top as well. And then a little bit of oregano because I love oregano. And I think it just pairs up beautifully. Pan over a little bit more on there. And then we're going to just top it with a little bit of mozzarella cheese. Not too much because it's not a pizza. We're just kind of doing a little bit. It's going to get a little crunchy and crispy on top. Give it a little extra texture. Do one more for good measure. And then a little shredded shaved Parmesan.
Yeah, question. Sometimes you use your old sourdough for croutons. Will this work as well?
Yes, you can use pretty much any bread, for a crouton. You just have to do that second bake and give it a good toss of oil. But focaccia, since it is a nice oily based one, will be perfect. I think we got a nice bubble going in here. So let's drop our first set of chickens in, and then we're going to pop this in the oven. I do have my oven preheated to 400. So since we have a nice bubble forming on here, I know my oil is nice and hot. So we're going to put our first sets of chicken in. And here we go. And now we're going to go put our focaccia in. This takes about 20 minutes to cook. This is a small focaccia, but it's going to be perfect for our dinner tonight. I feel like I make so much bread so often that I try not to make huge amounts, or we always have a little extra and then I'm making a new one. So let me put my timer on so that I'll be ready to grab it.
You have a question? Someone's making cod tomorrow. She said, what would you put on yours? She plans to use oil with lemon and dill.
That I will say lemon dill would be delicious. You could use a little garlic in there. And you could even make like a creamy sauce if you wanted to do, but black pepper as well, because I feel like the lemon dill and black pepper and garlic go really well with the cod. And you can either do a pan sear or you could do a broil on that. Would be lovely if you put it in like a parchment paper. Or I think you said you're using foil, but I think that would be delicious. Okay, we got our chicken cooking up here. I'm going to turn it down to about a medium. And then let's get our marinara for our chicken parm going. So we're going to use up a half an onion. I used the other half today during lunch. We made some chicken enchiladas. I had to have some Mexican food on Cinco de Mayo. So we did chicken enchiladas and Mexican chocolate scones, which were delicious. And so we're going to use the rest of the onion up for this. I'm going to do a nice kind of small mince on it because I don't want the onion to be too prominent in my marinara sauce, but I do feel that it adds something a little extra. Actually, before I finish chopping that up, let's get this pot going with a little bit of olive oil. Just about a tablespoon or so. You don't need much. And then we're going to do a nice kind of small mince on it.
You got a question. What's Mexican chocolate?
So it's really just a flavor profile of chocolate and cinnamon. And sometimes you can add a little bit of like cayenne pepper to it. I don't like it that spicy, but it is just a little bit of cinnamon added to it and gives you kind of that. It's a different chocolate taste to it. It kind of gives you a chocolate mole taste to it. But it is delicious as long as you can get the right blend of it. So, but that's what we made with their little scones, and they were delicious for it. But I'm going to mince up these onions. We're going to use this for our marinara sauce for our chicken parm. But we did upload our video from today's I think it's already up there. So if you want to go and check it out, it's on the link on our page where we made those scones. We also made a chocolate cinnamon glaze to go on top of them, which was delicious.
You have a question. Have you ever made a mole before?
I have made a mole before, and there's like a different types to go, but it is a lot of work to get to the right seasoning complex into it. But it is delicious. I like it. The problem is my family doesn't like it as much as I like it. I will say I'm probably way more adventurous than the rest of my family. My parents are really adventurous as well, but my kids and my husband they're willing to try it, but they have their opinions, and I'm hoping they'll grow out of them. Although I will say, I have to give my husband credit. When I first met him, he did not eat as wide of a variety of food that he does now. And he'll try everything. He gives everything a try. And he's grown to like a lot more than he originally did. So, baby steps. Still haven't got him to love Indian food or Ethiopian, but maybe one day. He's saying definitely not. Here we go. So we got our onion sauteing here. I'm gonna give them a good coat.
Yeah, what's your favorite dish at Thanksgiving tonight?
My green bean casserole. I actually made it a couple weeks ago. I absolutely love my green bean casserole. It is not like your traditional church green bean casserole. Everything is fresh, from the cream of mushroom soup that I make to the like fresh green beans that are blanched, and then a crispy onion. So I'm flipping my chicken over here, and we did an Italian breading on it, and it's frying up nicely. I'm gonna grab my thing, and we're gonna line this with some paper towels, because whenever I fry our chicken or anything up, I always put it out on a paper towel.
You have a question? How did everyone like the rabbit?
I will say we were like 50-50. So some like Torn absolutely loved the rabbit. I love the rabbit. My mom and my stepdad loved the rabbit. Evie was not a fan. And Lena she didn't care so much. Jack ate it and Teddy ate it because I don't think they really understand having an opinion on their food yet. So I will say we were 50-50. It's very much, if you've never had rabbit before, it's very much like chicken. A kind of a gamier, a little bit tougher chicken, but it is delicious and it was fun. I think Lena may have liked it better if it wasn't in a beer stew. I think the beer flavor of the stew, that kind of hoxie flavor, get it hoxie with the rabbit. I feel like I'm so clever there. I don't think she liked that as much. She loved the pork stew though, which we did in a red wine and tomato base. There we go. Okay, we've got our onions nice and kind of crispy here. And I'm going to add in a little bit of garlic. And then I'm going to turn my chicken down to about a 5. I'm going to add about a tablespoon of garlic in there. I do love a good garlic marinara. Give it a good kind of sizzle up. I'm going to turn this down just a wee. Here. And perfect. So we've got this nice caramelization on it, which gives it that kind of brown color, which really enhances the like natural flavors of the onions. And let's check our chicken real quick, see how we're going here. Just about. I give my thing a rotate. I always have one side that cooks a little bit more. And then I'm just using my good old trusty Rayos marinara. I love this stuff. You know, I do occasionally make my own marinara, but this is a pretty good stand-in when you don't have the time to make your own. I'm really picky about my marinara sauces, so I will say that, like, there's a few that are like okay, and this is the one that I like. I think because it doesn't have a lot of sugar in it. I like savory foods, not sweetened ones. And a lot of marinaras, they put a lot of sugar in it, and I'm not a fan of that. There we go. Put these over there. We're gonna give this a good stir, and then I'm gonna check my noodles. See how they are. These are rigatoni. Rigatoni tends to take a lot longer to cook than like a spaghetti noodle. So, not done yet. There's always a trick if you bite into the noodle and if you see some of the white, it's not cooked all the way through because the white is the uncooked pasta. And you can always tell just by like the firmness of it. And there we go. I'm going to turn this down to really low. There we go. So we've got our nice first golden fillet. And that one needs a second longer. So we're going to add in our next set. And for my chicken parm, I will put some of them in the marinara sauce at the end, and some of them will stay out because some of my kids like them completely separate from the marinara sauce. So I do save a little bit to go in there. Otherwise, I would have used my big old pot. Okay, this guy should be ready to come out now. Yep, you got a nice kind of golden, crispy.
You have a question? Can you go over what the chicken's coated in?
Yes. So our chicken is coated in, we first made a seasoned dredge where we put Italian seasoning, oregano, garlic, salt, onion powder, and all-purpose flour. We mix that together really well. Then we dredge the chicken in it, and then we added in some panko breadcrumbs and some Italian seasoned breadcrumbs. And then you go into the egg wash. and then into the new flour mixture with the breadcrumbs. So it's like a double coating, but that dredging is really important for getting it to fry up, like to get the nice crispy extra coating on it. Okay, let's prep up our salad here. Let's do our ranch dressing first. Say, I always make my ranch dressing fresh because it is so delicious fresh, and it doesn't take you hardly any time. So I'm going to use, I only do half a packet at a time because a full packet is just too much for our family, and we're a pretty big family. So we're going to start with a half a cup of mayo, a half a cup of milk, and then we'll do half a pack of ranch. And we're just going to use up the rest of it, and then you just let it sit and you'll mix it up.
You have a question? What temperature are you cooking it at?
The chicken, I have it right now on a medium, but what I do is I heat my oil up on high until it has what I call the sizzle effect, where you drop a drop of water in and it sizzles right away. Then I'll put the chicken in, and then I turn it down to medium because I don't want my chicken to get burned while I'm frying it. And if you keep your oil too hot, it will burn. But my goal is around, if you have a fryer, around 350 degrees. And we're going to add in some milk, about a half a cup of milk. And then we're going to add in half our packet of ranch seasoning. And we'll give it a good stir, and then you just let it sit, and it will thicken up on its own. But it's so delicious. If you have buttermilk, that makes an even better ranch. But good old milk is perfect. You can even do cream if you want a creamier ranch. Half and half also works well. Okay, we got a good stir here. I'm gonna give my noodles a quick toss. They should be ready in about a minute or so. Okay. Now we're gonna let our ranch sit. And let's chop up our lettuce. Just got a head of romaine. Kind of take off the bottom here. And we'll go through. I always say this, I buy them in the full heads because they stay fresh so much longer. And so you can I can buy a big 6-pack of them and they'll last me 2 weeks. No problem. And then got to throw in the tomatoes. These, you guys haven't seen these before. These are like the tropical tomatoes. They're like purple and orange. They taste just like a regular tomato, but slightly sweeter. They actually, I think, taste better. So I pay the $1 extra to get the bougie ones, as my kids will call them. Got a few minutes on that. Let's see how this chicken is looking. There we go. Okay, I want to think these two I'm going to flip back over, let them fry a little bit more because I want them to have that nice golden color. So always don't be afraid to flip it back over if it's not perfect. Just watch it because like if you have one part that hits the bottom of the pan, it can fry up and burn, and nobody wants burnt chicken. Okay. Let's get our sourdough prepped for things. So earlier today, we prepped up our starter. We made our chocolate scones, and then I fed our starter so that we can make a new loaf of sourdough bread. I'm going to actually make mini loaves again, where we add in an inclusion to it. So, running out of space here. We're going to start, and I'm just going to use my normal recipe that I normally use, which is, let me grab my spatula here. Okay. 100 grams of active starter. So we've got a nice bubbly starter in there. That means it's nice and active. And we want 100 grams of it. And I fed my starter just a few hours ago at the lunchtime feeding. It's really important that you feed it 4 to 8 hours beforehand. Let's give our chicken a flip. It should be ready here. Perfect. Got this nice golden color now. Let's check on this little guy back here. See? So we've got 100 grams in there. I'm actually going to, these should be ready now. So let me pause and get that one. Wrong burner. There we go, off. And I'm just going to strain them out and we'll put them right kind of back in there.
What fruit for tonight?
We are going to, if I have time, I'll cut up the watermelon. Otherwise, my kids will have grapes and strawberries that I have in the fridge. So it will just depend if I get to the watermelon. If not, the watermelon will be for another day. So I've got 100 grams of active starter in here. We're going to add 375 grams of warm water. Got to use warm water. It really helps the flour hydrate. And I will say, always use a scale in your sourdough journey. I find that your results are more likely to turn out than if you don't use a scale. Because your cup, they say a cup can be off by almost 100 or 50 grams per cup in any direction, because you could have a pocket in it or you could pat it down too much. So a scale is your best friend.
Yeah, question. At what ratio do you feed your starter?
I typically do, I don't have like a 1-to-1 ratio. I typically do 10 tablespoons of flour and 10 tablespoons of water based on like when my jar gets about halfway full. And it works out every single time for me. If I've only used a little bit, then I do 5 and 5, but I just keep it in that kind of ratio and it works perfect. And I will say, you can never give your starter really too much flour, but you can give it too much water. So always err on the side of caution with the water. Okay, I'll turn this. And let's get our chicken here. I think this guy is ready to come out. Yes. There we go. Let's see how these guys are cooking. Needs maybe a little bit more. A little bit longer. Okay, we'll let those cook for maybe a minute more. I want that nice kind of golden crust to it. Okay, we're going to add in about 2 teaspoons of salt, which is about 8 to 10 grams, but I'm just going to eyeball it. So that's 1 teaspoon, and that's about 2 teaspoons. I'm going to give it a good stir, and then we're going to add in 500 grams of unbleached bread flour. And I'm hoping I have enough bread flour. If not, I can always use a little bit of all-purpose flour. But again, your all-purpose flour isn't going to give you the best. But I think I'm going to be very close to being where I need to be at. Okay, so just a little subbing of all-purpose flour. And the difference between all-purpose flour and bread flour is about 1% more in bread flour of gluten, which gives you a better elasticity in your bread.
What's the difference between bleached and unbleached flour?
So bleached flour goes through a whitening process via bleaching, and it makes your flour whiter. But that process also kills off the natural occurring yeast in bread in the flour and the bacteria that helps the fermentation process in sourdough. So for sourdough, you really need that natural occurring yeast and that those bacteria for your sourdough to rise. So unbleached flour, you will not get a rise out of it. You'll just have a gooey, gummy lump because it's been mainly killed out of it. And so that's just kind of the process that came about in like the 40s and 50s, you know, when like Wonder Bread came out, cotton bread came out. They just kind of did it away to make it a little bit more appealing to people. But you then kind of lose that naturally occurring like benefits of it. Okay. Let's transfer these guys out. There we go. Got a lovely kind of crisp, nice golden brown crisp on it. Always put the oil side down on the paper towel because that kind of grabs that a little bit. There we go. Because it will cause the it to get crispier versus soggy. Let's put these ones in, and then we're going to grab our focaccia out of the oven. Okay, let's go grab that. I'm going to grab myself and a trivet. There we go. So we've got our nice crispy cheese on it. And you see how we coated it with lovely oil, so that gives it a nice little crunch to it. Now, if you don't like the crispy cheese on it, then you can always wait and about halfway through, pull it out and throw the cheese on. But we all love the crispy cheese. And it's not super like crunchy, but it's delicious. And this is going to be our garlic cheese focaccia. We made a quick one where we used yeast in it. I prepped it about an hour ago, had a quick rise in the oven. It's a great way to throw out a nice bread dish without a lot of work. And then we covered it in oil, we made the dimples, we added oregano, Italian seasoning, mozzarella cheese, and Parmesan. The dark brown, as you can see, is Parmesan. It crisps up nicely for it. Okay, so here, we're gonna do my last little stir. And for those of you who aren't familiar with sourdough, it is a high hydration dough, which means it's going to be very sticky to begin with. But as it sits, the flour hydrates more and it becomes more and more workable on it. And if you're worried about doing the stretch and pulls, just dip your hands in a little bit of water and that helps the dough not stick to you. So in about 15 minutes, you do the stretch and pulls, and we'll do 4 sets of stretch and pulls for our final product over the next 2 hours. Okay. Well, we are almost just about done with our dinner, but let me show you how I like to do for those who like the Parmesan part. So I'm going to leave some of mine out and some of them will go in. What I'm going to do is you're going to take your chicken, fried chicken fillets, and we're going to put a couple fillets on top. I do leave some out because some of my kids don't like it completely drenched. I love it drenched. And they don't like it with a full cheese covering on it. But we do have several that do.
You have a question. Have you ever thought about being a chef full time?
I have thought about it, but I don't think I would enjoy it if I had to do it as a job. You know, there's the things where you can have a passion out, but if you have to do it to get it out for people, you know, it's hard. I deal with hard enough time with my 9-year-old critiquing me. We're going to go pop this in the oven real quick to get a nice kind of crisp melt up on the cheese to give you that delicious kind of cheese pull that you see with chicken parm. And this is just mozzarella. And what I'm going to do, my oven is nice and hot at 400, but what you want to do is I'm going to change mine to the air fryer setting. If you don't have an air fryer, you want to use convection bake. That's going to push your air around hot, and it will give you a rapid kind of bubble on your cheese. So that should be ready in about like 2 to 3 minutes. It will be nice and bubbly and melted, and it will be perfect for our chicken parm. Okay, let's get our chicken flipped right here. And then we do, of course, have my extra ones for my kids who aren't quite as bougie and don't like it there. But it looks like I'm going to have time to cut up my watermelon. So let me give a quick rinse. I'm not sure. That side had onions. I just want to make sure the side that has onions is not the side that I'm touching my watermelon with. Say, onion does not transfer well. And we eat about a little baby watermelon, kind of per meal type thing. So let me just slide this plate out of the way. And then I'm going to cut it up because I like to buy them. You can cut it up. Me buying my watermelon and cutting it up probably saves me about $10 versus buying it pre-cut up at the store. So when you have a big family, let me turn that off. It is always nice to just prep your own fruit. It's always nice to find ways to kind of save money, but you guys can still eat good, healthy stuff. You know, because I feel like they make healthy food the most expensive at the store. And I want my kids to eat healthy, fresh fruit. But when you have to pay an arm and a leg for it, you know, it's not as feasible when you're feeding 9 mouths every night. So I always cut up my own fruit, like pineapple. Pineapple, I think, is the worst offender. But watermelon, for how cheap it is and for how much they overprice it, that is one that is also a big offender on there. Because you can buy, like, I will say, like Publix, the large container of watermelon at Publix is about $10, but you can buy a giant watermelon for $6, which would give me probably 5 times that amount of watermelon. So you see how they make a pretty penny for like 5 minutes of their work time. You know, they're paying probably somebody minimum wage, and they'll cut up all of that and they'll have made that profit and then some.
Still a question. How do you know how to pick out a good watermelon?
So my trick for picking out a good watermelon is, let's see if we can see it. So I kind of cut part of it, but there's typically a yellow spot or a white spot on your watermelon where it lays on the ground. Do not buy the white spots. The white spots mean that they're not going to be as sweet, and they grew rapidly. So they got a lot of water at one time and grew, which means they're going to have hardly any flavor. Also, you're going to look for a dark green with your like equal striping on it. That's going to show that it had nice even growth, which means you'll hopefully have a nicer flavor to it. Okay, let's look at our chicken here. I think perfect. Nice kind of golden. Again, we're going to go grease side down for it. That way it will crisp up. I've got this off.
Question. What's everyone's favorite fruit?
Well, everyone has a very different favorite fruit. So Torrance is mangoes. He loves mangoes. So that's probably his favorite one. Lena is either strawberries or pineapple. Evie's is either apples or raspberries. Teddy's, he loves like oranges, grapefruits, like the citrusy thing. And Jack, kiwi. Evie and Teddy love kiwi. I always forget about it, but then I saw my kiwi right over here. They love kiwi. That's probably their favorite fruit. Jack, I don't know. He eats everything. He's my little turkey butt that just like eats and eats. He's like an endless pit. I swear they like 18-month-olds, the amount of food that they can put away. And you're like, you're so little. How does that much food fit in their body?
I want to read this funny comment saying that they love your commentary and you'd be an excellent teacher.
It's funny. I was a teacher for several years.
15?
And 15 years. I was a teacher for 15 years. And when I was pregnant with my fourth one, I decided to stay home. And because I had worked through with all of my other ones, went through grad school, all of that. And then I decided, you know what? I wanted to stay home, for a little while. And yeah, but I loved it. I actually have my bachelor's. I have 2 undergrad degrees, early childhood and then special education. And then my master's is in early childhood, special education. And my doctorate is in educational leadership and policy. So I was a teacher. I also spent decades in the school doing that as well. Who says you can't have a big family and be well educated? And, I left a great paying job to be home with my family because that's what I wanted to do. So that's just was my calling. I love being home and being a mom. And, I do some consulting and stuff like that on the side. So I haven't completely left my profession behind or whatnot. But, being a parent is it's a full-time job. Okay. We've got a nice little bubbly sear. So you see how that air fryer on the oven popped it up nice and quickly. Beautiful. So this is our chicken parm. And then I'm going to show you guys in just a second how we're going to serve it up. I'm going to just pop my noodles in here. And then, there we go. Break this down. There we go. Okay. Let's grab our plate. Let's serve up dinner. So we'll start with our noodle base. We've got some ziti. I feel like ziti works great for chicken parm because the noodles hold up really well. And then, see if I got my nice little spoon here. So we're going to grab up, see if we can get this delicious kind of cheese pull. That's the magnificent. We'll play that right on top. And then I'm going to grab an extra little bit of sauce on there. So, oh, gorgeous. And let me pull this over here. We have our salad. We'll have a fresh garden salad topped with our kind of homemade ranch. I'm going to put that on the side. Grab my homemade ranch over here. And then pour it over. It'll be delicious. You gotta love your homemade ranch. And then our beautiful focaccia. I'll pull it up. You see how we've got this nice golden crust? Just break into it and grab off a nice kind of piece. Beautiful, fluffy, and got a nice crispy crunch. So we'll have our focaccia and then, of course, our watermelon as our fruit. Well, guys, let's go over this one more time so you guys can see. We have our chicken parm. We did it on ziti noodles with, we have our fried chicken in there, homemade our marinara sauce with the melted mozzarella cheese over it. We made our quick yeast focaccia. It took us just about an hour rise, so a super quick, simple recipe. And then, of course, our salad with homemade ranch. Kind of quick, easy dinner on the go, you know. I have a busy, crazy life here, so I always like to have good but quick kind of dinners for our family that are like pretty much homemade from scratch. Again, well, thank you guys so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, show you what we're cooking for our family, and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. We do upload all of our videos to the link on our page, so you can always go back and watch them again if you want to recreate our recipes, and you can just cook along with me again. And we do offer membership if you want access. We have some exclusives there, extra recipe cards and videos, more stuff about the family and all that jazz. But again, thank you so much for joining us here today. Don't forget to like